Hi, I'm Kathy Henry, and I am a licensed clinical social worker here in the Indianapolis area, and I am proud to work for Healing Hearts of Indy. Are you feeling trapped in your relationship? Do you often feel like you can't control how the day is going to go? If your partner is upset, that it will wreck your day, um, or that they sort of have power over you on whether or not you feel good? This could be a sign of enmeshment. Enmeshment is a very unhealthy state of a relationship. It is certainly a state of the relationship that feels good in the beginning when we get together and we are so enthralled with that other person that we can't get enough of them. We spend all of our waking minutes with them. We will skip work. We will go way out of our way to spend extra time with them, and we'll maybe even ditch our friends so that we can spend more time with them because we really have sort of conjoined our lives with them, and we've maybe let them in intimately, certainly emotionally and maybe even physically, let them into some of the really, really deep recesses of our hearts. And like I said, in the beginning it feels amazing, but one of the problems with enmeshment is because of this sort of over closeness, now I'm finding it difficult to be able to just be me in the relationship. And the other person is having some difficulty with that too. And there's a little bit of a battle on who gets to keep the parts of themselves that they hid during that initial phase and, and still be okay. So a lot of the problem with enmeshment is that we put our okayness, if you will, on the other person. Now what that means is I can't be okay unless you are okay with me, which is a very dependent state. So now I've got way too much resting on what you think of me, and I can't feel okay unless you agree. Well, that's going to be a problem if I have a different opinion than you, or I believe differently than you, or I have a different value than you, and it's going to put a lot of stress then on that relationship. The enmeshment is actually a very fragile state. I call it a volatile state when I'm talking with my couples because you're fighting over who gets to keep themselves, so to speak, who gets to keep the parts of themselves that the other person wants them to give up. Another reason why enmeshment is such a problem, and in fact sometimes even what I would call lethal a little bit, is that we use enmeshment with another person as a sort of temporary patch to our abandonment. So I have an abandonment wound deep in my heart, an empty place that needs to be filled up, and I've effectively hooked up to another person, I say through the aorta. So I hooked up a very vital artery that is needed for me to live up to yours. And so now those two are combined, and when we have conflict or one person needs some distance or whatever, we feel that tug on the aorta, and it feels like I'm going to bleed to death if this continues. So then again, we're duking it out over who gets to stay where they are and who has to move. So this is enmeshment and the breaking and the tearing of enmeshment that actually causes a lot of damage in the relationship. So knowing that we can't live with a severed aorta, like we will do whatever we have to do to stay hooked up to this person. That's why enmeshment, again, is so volatile. And in fact, what it does is it requires that we abandon ourselves in order to stay in the relationship. One person has to. Another problem with enmeshment is that we all have a belief that we're going to turn over the protection of our heart to this person, and in the beginning they are well qualified, they're so interested in doing whatever it is that you need, and they it feels like they're going to love you in the way that you've wanted to be loved your whole life. And so I'm going to turn over to you, this person that I've interviewed for a few months, the protection of my heart to you, and I no longer have to look out for it. So I'm sort of relieving myself of the duties and I'm giving it to you. And I'm expecting you to be 110% responsible for it as if it were your own. Now, I don't disagree that that's a wonderful concept in marriage and I love it. I wish that the world were like that, but I also know that people are human and we make mistakes and we step on each other's toes and we hurt each other intentionally or not. And if I am living by the belief that there's no possible way you could hurt me, and then you do, I'm pretty devastated. And once again, my aorta is severed. I'm dealing with I can't be okay. And I'm bleeding to death here because of whatever it is you did that it really just says that you're human. I'm not saying what you did was that the other person did was okay, but I'm saying I was too dependent upon this person and I didn't even consider the possibility that they might hurt me. And like I said, I agree that it would be nice if the world worked that way, but unfortunately it doesn't always. And when we leave ourselves unprepared for the possibility of that kind of a hurt, even in our most intimate relationships, we are really sort of abandoning ourselves. And that really is the essence of what I'm trying to say today, is that enmeshment is a very unhealthy state. It leaves you way too vulnerable, and it is... It doesn't keep your heart protected. I'm going to talk in another video about how to keep your heart protected in a healthy way and not going the opposite of enmeshment and cutting off and not getting any love in your life. But in other words, what I'm trying to do is help you learn how to straddle those two things and have a healthy connection with people, but not be cut off from love altogether, and not to be too close where you're way too vulnerable and can easily be hurt. So I thank you so much for listening today, and I look forward to talking with you again in the future.